Okay, so let's enhance our PaintPot app. If you uploaded the PaintPot2 template, you'll start off with this interface. And remember, we want to add the plus and the minus buttons. So I'm going to get you started on this and then leave it up to you to finish up the formatting of those buttons. First, I'm going to add a horizontal arrangement component above the white button. And then I'm going to put a button, a label, to store the dot size value, and another button in here. And I'll just show you that for the label we want its text to be dot size equals something like 5 or 6, and this is going to change as we click on the buttons. And of course we want this to fill parent. Now I'm going to leave it to you to fix these up. We want all three of these to have the appropriate names. This one should be labeled minus. This text for button 2 should be labeled plus. They should be given more descriptive names over here. And they should be formatted so they nicely fill out their container the way these buttons up here did. So you know how to do that from the first version of PaintPot. So I'm going to leave you to it, and I'll come back in a few minutes to continue on with the tutorial. And we're back. So hopefully you were able to get the interface all set up. As you see here, I've renamed my buttons and labels. All of them are, their width is set to fill parent, including the horizontal arrangement. And so you should end up with something that looks like this. So now we're going to switch over to the blocks editor. And remember that when we touch the canvas, we draw a circle, and the circle always has radius 5. That's the limitation. Even if we change this value here to an 8, that doesn't fix the problem, because then all the dots will be of size 8. What we want to happen is we want to get rid of this, and we want to actually put something in there that can vary as we touch the plus button or the minus button. So for that purpose, I'm going to go to my variables drawer, and I'm going to create a global variable named dot size. And I'm going to give it an initial value of, let's give it 6, since that's what we wrote on the user interface. Now that we define the global variable dot size, we can plug its value into this radius slot, and that will allow us to vary it as the variable value changes. So I'm going to go back to my variables drawer, and I'm going to get the getter block. Notice how it's going to plug right into that slot. I'm going to use the pull down menu here to have it get the dot size. So it's going to get the value of whatever number we've stored inside this variable dot size. So that will allow us to vary the dot size as we click our plus and minus buttons, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do next. Okay, so what we want to happen is when the plus button is clicked, we want to change the dot size. We want to actually add 1 to the current value of dot size. So I've pulled out my button plus click handler here. And now I want to change the value, whatever value we've stored in there. It's currently 6. I want to change it by adding 1 to it. So I'm going to show you how to do this. And this is also a very important general concept, the idea of adding 1 to a variable. So I'm going to go to my variables drawer, and this time I'm going to pull out the setter block, because we're going to set dot size to a new value. So I'm going to pull its name in here. So I'm going to set dot size to a new value. But what is that new value? Well, it's 1 more than its current value. And I already know how to get its current value. To get its current value, I use a getter block. So what I need to do now is add its current value and 1. So for that I need a math operator. I need the plus operator. I'm going to plug that in here. And then I'm going to go back to my variables drawer and grab the getter block. So I'm going to get the current value of the dot size. And now I'm going to add 1 to it by pulling out the number 1. And so on the right side of this block, I have global dot size plus 1. So if this is 6 and I add 1 to it, I would get 7. And now I'm going to set dot size to that new value of 7. Okay, so let's actually test this out to see whether it works. Whenever the button clicks, the dot size should get bigger. Okay, so I've got the app now running on my phone, and whenever I touch the plus button, the dot size should increase. So when I draw new dots, they should be bigger than they were initially. So these are probably up to 9. And now I'll make them a couple of sizes bigger and a couple of more sizes bigger. So you can see that our code is correct, that I am increasing the dot size. One thing you notice is it's not changing the label, which is the next thing we have to do to finish up this part of the app. So what we want to modify here is we want to modify the button plus click handler so that it also changes the value of the dot size in the label. I need to modify my label, and I want to pull a label setter block, and the property I want to set is the text on the label. But what I really want to do is I want to do something like adding 1 to a variable. I want to add the dot size to the word dot size so it looks like dot size equals 8. So I'm going to use an operator in my text drawer that lets me join together two values. And I'm going to join together the phrase dot size equals the current value of dot size, for which I use a getter. So this is a little bit like adding together two numbers, except I'm adding together two pieces of text, and I'm going to set that new piece of text to the current value of the text property in the label. So let's see how that looks when we run it. Now whenever I tap the plus button, I can see that the dot size changes to 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, and at the same time the dot size itself gets bigger and bigger. Before we move on, it's important to call attention to how we are using a global variable here. So remember, we used to have a fixed value of 5 as the radius of the circles that we drew on our app. And what we've done is we've replaced that fixed value with something more general and more abstract, namely a global variable named dot size. So that when we change the dot size, we change the size of the circles that are drawn on the interface. So this is an important use of abstraction, to go from something concrete like the number 5 to something more general like a variable that can take on many different values. And we're going to see examples of this throughout our apps. So this is the first important example of abstraction at work.